Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for the Steelers Hangover. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Alongside me is my good friend Tony Defeo. Man, you're still coming down from a hangover from draft, or was it from being on touchdown under the other day?
Yeah, the time difference. I'm jet lag. I'm just getting used to my old routine. Wow.
See, when they ask you, when Mark Davison and Matty Peverell ask you to be on touchdown under, you don't realize you have to fly down there. You have to fly to Australia to hang out with them and do it live. But
I will say this: that whole accent thing, it's real. After my brief stint in Australia, they dig it.
I can see you with the Yinzer accent in Australia getting all kinds of babes. just like Marky Davison, when he comes to the U.S.
Oh yeah,
the babes love him, and there he is. He's in the live chat too.
There you go.
Hey, so gosh, the draft. That's all we've been talking about,
right?
And it's been done for about a week, and now the schedule is coming out. But the big thing about the draft is we're getting all excited about these players that they brought in, and we're getting excited about the undrafted free agents as well. But do the Steelers still need to take a visit to the vet, Tony? That's the question here.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they're okay on. I don't say okay, but I think they've brought in enough for offense, like the line. I think they like Zach Banner as a right tackle, and I think they still like Shooks, and Joe Haig's a good veteran for depth. But that defense, you got to like most of it. But you're still, I think, cornerback is a question mark. Outside linebacker, as far as depth, yeah, I think there might be a reason to do that.
So this is what we're going to talk about on the show. I mean, we are going to, skip the gristle and get straight to the bone here on the Hangover and talk about the Steelers' needs. We're going to continue to talk about who they drafted, but if it is enough to keep them going to the vet. And when we say going to the vet, we're not talking about taking their schnauzer for a snipping. What we're saying is we need to see if you need to bring a veteran player in. And you saw that today. The Kansas City Chiefs, when they let go Eric Fisher, when they did not re-sign him, he was a big free agent. He was on the wish list of a lot of Steelers fans. He went for a lot of money. He still went for about $9 million to the Indianapolis Colts, and he's injured. We had the big news last week with Alejandro Villanueva signing with the Baltimore Ravens officially. We knew that was going to happen, but he got a guaranteed $8 million. And on a 2-year, $14 million deal that's guaranteed for $8 million, that's pretty good money for a guy late in his career. So everybody that said, oh, he's going to retire, he should retire. Why should he retire when he can get that kind of money?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
it's like the old joke that Daniel Tosh said about Brett Favre. Keep playing till he's 80 if you're going to keep paying him.
Well, I think, I say this over and over and over again. Ben Roethlisberger is not going anywhere until you make him.
Right.
If he can get more money and if he can get a contract, and hey, man, if you love what you do and you still feel you can do it, you're going to do it. And if a team's going to have you, you're going to have it. I mean, I doubt that we'll see Ben Roethlisberger in another uniform, but you could. You could see any of these. Nobody ever thought that they would see Alejandro Villanueva in another team's uniform. But that's exactly what happened. And I have no problem with it. Now, let me ask you this before we get straight into the topic. Alejandro Villanueva came out and took some shots. Definitely took some shots. Do they bother you really, Tony?
No, because I mean, from my perspective, I thought he was just joking. Like when I read the quote about David DeCastro and Kevin Zeitler being an upgrade as far as his work commute buddy, I laughed. I thought he was just taking a friendly jab at him. I don't think he would want to put himself in that position where he's taking shots at his old team, and he has to sit there and answer all those questions and talk about it in the regular season and be a target for his old. I think he was just joking.
Now, Wilfredo Vasquez 11 gives us $2, and thank you so much, Wilfredo. We appreciate it on the super chat. If you want to use the super chat option to get to the top of the queue, feel free. He says, I really want to see Watt against Villanueva. I think everybody wants to see that, because where Villanueva struggled a little bit last year was against the run, but even more, a little bit more against the pass. When I say against, when he's against the pass rush. So I can't wait to see what they can do. But it's funny because, when you go against these guys in practice, and they've gone against each other in practice before, because remember, Watt was on that side as a rookie on Villanueva's side. And so they learn things about the own players that they go up against. And I'm sure that Villanueva has some tricks, but I think more often than not, you're going to see Watt win that. So I'm really anxious to see that. I think that would be great. But where Villanueva was talking about, blocking for the run, and he's going to a pure running team. And so he's going to be happy there. But the Steelers were terrible running the football last year, and he was a part of that. So that's really interesting too. So I'm anxious to see that, but I wish him nothing but good things. It's going to be weird seeing him in purple, but I have no problem. Tyler Bowe, who's become a good friend of the show, says, blasphemy, Ben will retire before play as a Ratbird. I would never say never. I would never put a bet down on it. Gavin says the fact that they did not extend Ben's contract and just use void year shows he's retiring after the season. Not so fast. Not so fast.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on that.
We have been incorrectly predicting Ben Roethlisberger's future for a long time.
Yep.
And now when and I just lost it here. I think it was Sherry that said something about Ben going out like Brett Favre, and I lost it because I'm Sherry Richards said that, and Ben's gonna go out like Favre. I could see that. I could see kicking and screaming is what I think is going to happen with Ben Roethlisberger. Go ahead.
No, and if he wants to, if that's how he wants to do it, if he wants to play with another team because he has to move on from Pittsburgh because the Steelers decided to move on from him, then that's fine. I mean, he doesn't really you like to see him retire as a Steeler, but if he wants to keep playing and Pittsburgh doesn't want him, Pittsburgh doesn't see him factoring into their near future, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. You only get to play this game for so long, and after you hang him up, it's pretty much for good. So I can't blame a player for wanting to stick around, even if it's not with the team that he grew up with.
Dallas Quinley writes, best unsexy move was re-signing Rudolph. I really think it was. That's a super smart move because you're not going to that's really the best thing that you could have behind Ben right now than signing somebody else to bring in, because there's really nobody to sign to bring in right now. So I don't think that was a terribly bad idea. Doesn't mean that he is going to be the future quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just means that he might be a place setter if indeed this is Ben's last year.
Right.
So awesome stuff. 83 says, I trust the GM. If they ever say Ben is done, then Ben is done. Yeah, I mean, I could agree with that too, but I still say Ben Roethlisberger, Will Ferrell, kicking and screaming.
But if that were the case, if that is the case next year where Ben's gone and Mason Rudolph's still here, he will be here because he signed a contract for 2022. Well, what a great opportunity! Even if they don't figure him in their plans as their starter, he's gonna have a chance to do it. I would assume, unless they bring a quarterback in the first round, or unless Dwayne Haskins realizes his potential this year and they really fall in love with him. Mason Rudolph's going to get a chance next year to show what he's got.
The offensive line, says Mark L. Kane, better blocker. He won't make it through the season. Hey, he made it through last season, and I really didn't think they blocked very well, because Ben did a very good job of getting that ball off early, and that was a lot of the problem. The thing that everybody's excited to see is what Ben does in the Matt Canada offense, and Ryan O'Toole's really excited about that. And he also says, Tony, loved your article today on the draft. So good job there. Thanks, Ryan, for the $5. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, Matt Canada's offense, hopefully that affords Ben a little bit more time, because he wasn't getting the time last year. And that all goes back to what the title of the show is. Will the Steelers have to go to the vet? And on the offensive side of the ball, Eric Fisher's gone now. He was never with the Steelers, but he is off the board. A lot of people wanted him there. Like I said, he cost a lot of money. There's some names out there: Mitchell Schwartz, Rick Wagner, Jason Peters, James Carpenter, and Bobby Massey. I don't think any of those guys are guys that you want to bring in. I think the Steelers at this point would rather just stick with a guy like see what they have with the guys that they signed in the form of their left tackle, number 72, Mr. Zach Banner, or their left tackle, Chuks Okorafor. And then, I'm sorry, if I said left tackle, I meant right tackle for Mr. Banner. Now, there is one more free agent out there that was let go last week. He is a Pro Bowl player for the Bears, Charles Leno. Really interesting. Do you think that they would go after a guy like Charles Leno, or if they're going to spend money, are they going to spend it on the defensive side of the ball? And don't say what money, because they'll find some money if they have to.
If they have to, yeah. I think if they're going to spend the money, it's going to be on defense. A guy like Leno, he's sort of like Eric Fisher or even Al Villanueva, even though he wasn't cut. They decided not to bring him back because of they wanted to go younger and maybe cheaper. So a guy like Leno, I think they've invested in Banner and that 2-year contract, and they still have Chuks, and I think they want to see what they have in him. So Leno sounds like another one of those guys that's going to, even though he was cut, it was just for cap purposes. And so I think he's probably gonna get a decent deal somewhere. And I think Steelers aren't going to want to spend that kind of money on the offensive line. If they do spend, it might be on the other side of the ball.
Okay, awesome stuff. Says a lot can happen in a year. Pointless to pontificate too much until we see Ben in Canada. It could go really well, or Ben could fall off a cliff, or somewhere in between. The next quarterback could be anyone. I appreciate that awesome stuff, but here's the deal: we got to do a show. We have to come up with things to talk about on the show. If not, there's just going to be dead air, and we don't have jobs here. So a lot of people are pontificating. We got to do that too. So right. I get it. Wilfredo gives us some more cash, $5. Thank you, buddy. I really don't mind players leaving and being successful. I wish nothing but the best. But why do they always play the hurt girlfriend role, especially AB? That's a good example there. AB did play the hurt girlfriend role, but AB did that himself. We also get go ahead, Tony.
Well, I was just going to say about AB. I mean, I think he's kind of moved on. You really haven't heard much from him over the last year or so. So maybe we have to do a little bit of letting go of AB as ourselves. But I really mangled that. But you know what I mean.
Odessa Hall. Hey, Odessa, it's good to see you back. Gives us a super sticker, and we really appreciate that. $10. Thank you so much. If you do have a question or do have a comment, throw it in there. Tony and I will throw it back, and we'll throw it up there right away. So thank you so much. We do really appreciate that. And also we have Wilfredo giving us another $2. Thank you so much. And now Big Al. Yeah. Maybe Tony's right. Maybe Big Al is just having fun screwing around, because he did have that personality to do stuff like that. But right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could always be something like, when you're going to a division rival, you're going to Baltimore from Pittsburgh. Hey, that's currying favor with the fans, and the fans in purple are going to love that coming in. I'm hearing something like that. That's not something you expect from Big Al, or maybe he was just tired of the way things were going. So maybe he was tired of all the passing, because he definitely felt to bring it up. And that's the reason that he didn't want to come back, and the Steelers obviously didn't want to give him money as well. So, Tony, I want to talk about the defensive side of the ball. And Michael Beck wrote a great article today. And if you did not get a chance to see it, it is on BTSC, the editorial side, which a lot of people don't realize that we come from BTSC, from behindthesteelcurtain.com. The podcast network and being on YouTube was basically, we're a spinoff of that.
Right.
So when you say what came first, the editorial came first. And where I do most of my work now on the podcast side, and Tony probably splits his work. He does half and half. But I do so much work on the on this side of it. You just see my name all the time on it because I'm writing the articles for everybody's podcast. And that's so you see me on there and you think that but I do so much more over here. And you have the writers like, of course, the co-editors, Dave Schofield and Jeff Hartman. You have Michael Beck and Jeffrey Benedict and Tony and Shannon White and KT. They're doing all of those articles on that side of the ledger. Tony does a lot more as far as Tony doesn't do straight news. He does commentary, and that's what I like to do more. And if you ask me, and I'm not trying to wax your car because you're here, I'm just saying I think Tony is one of the best in the business when it comes to commentary, and I just love listening to his stuff.
No, but I'm not just saying this either, but Bryan, since he took over as the podcast manager, we've gone from here all the way up to here. Like we're up here now. You can't even see it. That's how high the podcasting platform has grown. So Bryan has done a tremendous job as the manager. So let's give it up for Bryan.
Well, thanks. And Jeff has a lot to do with it because Jeff and I and Dave, we put our heads together to change this and just make sure that we have a whole lot of content. So I appreciate that. But let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. And in Michael Beck's article, he brought out 10 guys. And those 10 guys that he brought out could all help the Steelers in different ways. So what I kind of want to do is I want to take his article from 10 to 1. And I would like to examine these players, Tony.
Okay.
I'm laughing. Steelers Freak just made fun of us. Quid pro blow.
Fair enough.
I guess that's what it is. That's fine. We're cool with that. So I want to go ahead and take these players from 10 to 1 and see if these guys would help the Steelers or if you think that they did just well enough with the draft that they don't really have to go this route. There's some of these guys that I would look at and some of these guys that I would stay away from. And there's going to be some surprises on this list as well. And that's something that we are going to do after the break. You don't want to miss it. And then we are also, the second half of the show is something you definitely want to tune in because Tony and I will tell you which guy on this list on the defensive side of the ball that would be the best bet for the Pittsburgh Steelers to sign and who would help them immediately in 2021. So somebody we would love to see. So if you are on Facebook or you're on YouTube checking us out, just go ahead. We are going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to take our quick stretch, and then we're going to come back and do number 2. Well, excuse me. Let me rephrase that. We're going to do part 2 of the show. And all right. I didn't see that coming. And if you are on the podcast platform, I am a child, Tony. I do apologize. But if you're checking us out on the audio only side and you're listening to this later on, just go ahead and download number 2. It's free to do. It's really easy. And we will be back right after this. Patty Man gets it. That was not intended, but he gets it. So we will be back right after this. Stick around to the Steelers Hangover. Welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers Hangover. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. This is Tony Julius Defeo, and we are together once again for the Steelers Hangover. Thank you so much for all of you for for coming in and hanging out with us. And I'm getting a kick out of all of the comments from the live chat. I don't always get a chance to look at it. Donald Nolan making me laugh with the Austin Powers reference. Who does number 2 work for? My son, my son is I introduced him to Austin Powers, and he's 13. So, that kind of stuff is awesome. And when you talk about the actor Robert Wagner, who played number 2, now he's still on NCIS as a guest star every once in a while. And we've been watching NCIS, and every time he tunes in, he's like, he thinks it's great because he was on Austin Powers, and that's his favorite character when he shows up, because he's number 2. So, and that show's getting ready to go into like season 19, and it's awesome. It's classic. And Tony, do you watch that show?
Every now and then, not a whole lot, not enough to really to have knowledge of it. But I love those kind of shows, like just in general.
So let's go ahead and take a look at this list. And I'm looking at the live chat, and I'm seeing some of these names pop up already. But what I want to go ahead and do before we do all that, I want to talk about the draft as well when we talk about these positions. But we also had a live chat from Wes, and I want to bring that up. I'd like to thank you to the BTSC crew for all the pre-live post-draft content. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Wes. I appreciate it. Man, that was it was a lot of fun to do. Sure, we were tired afterwards, and we keep on talking about how the fact we were just on a post podcast after there was just 5 of us together just discussing that we're going to have a great break, and we're going to have about maybe 2 hours before our next show. And then right away, Michael Beck yells out, "Oh my gosh, they just made a trade." They're in round number 5. And then now we're scrambling. All of us are running to go ahead. There goes our break. I was like, man, I'm probably going to eat lunch. No lunch for me.
Yeah, that was you guys did a great job.
It is a lot of fun, but we do it for the love of it too. And thank you for trusting us with giving you all that information, and keep coming back, because it was one of those things. We had some listeners come out of the woodwork, and they haven't gone away yet. And that's how we build our podcast platform. So I do really appreciate it. Just for the month of May alone, we are over 100,000 downloads.
Whew.
And that is, and we're just on day 10 of the month. So we're really excited for that. So thank you so much. So let's go ahead and look at the draft. When we talked about that 5th round pick, Isaiah Loudermilk just now. And we didn't talk about him, but we talked about the trade that netted the big man from Wisconsin. And a lot of people think that the defensive line, that was kind of not really a need pick. And we're not really going to discuss whether he was a need pick or not, but that's a really crowded defensive line. So, Tony, would you think that the Steelers would even consider bringing a defensive lineman at this point? Because I don't think so. No,
I think it would be a luxury. That's if they're going to put their resources anywhere on the defense. I think the line would be the last place, because I think it's such a strong unit. I'm glad that Tyson Alualu came back, and of course they have Hayward and Tuitt and the 3 youngsters now, in Chris Wormley. So I think they have so many guys there. There's really no need for anybody to come in to bring in anybody of any great reputation.
So, I'm going to get off subject here real quick, because I'm looking at the live chat. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but our good friend Cree says Mark Harmon is the man. So I brought up NCIS, and Mark Harmon, who has been around forever, St. Elsewhere, summer school. Now, Ryan O'Toole says, it's cool to see Mark's wife, Pam Dauber, Mindy of Mork and Mindy, is now appearing on the show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah, they've been married for over 30 some years. But did you know this, Tony? Because my wife loves Gibbs. She loves Mark Harmon. She thinks he's fantastic, and we do too. I mean, it's funny because we always joke, Gibbs or Magnum, who's better? And I'm still a Magnum guy. I'm still a Tom Selleck guy, but Gibbs is a close second. If anybody would knock off Magnum, it would be Gibbs. But a lot of people don't know this. Gibbs, Mark Harmon, was a quarterback for UCLA in the late 70s, and his dad was a great college quarterback. In fact, I think his dad was a Heisman Trophy winner for Michigan, and he played for the Chicago Bears, Tommy Harmon. So bringing that back into football. So really interesting stuff there.
That's yeah. I would have to go with Magnum, but as far as I'm happy to. I mean, I knew Pam Dauber and Mark Harmon were married, but I didn't know she was still acting. So that's good to see.
Yeah, she's back. Just maybe for about 4 episode arc. So that's really cool. I haven't seen her on it yet, but I'm excited for that. Let's go to the linebackers now, and more importantly, the edge rushers first. Let's talk about that. So the Steelers, excuse me, the Steelers brought in an edge rusher, Quincy Roche, in the 6th round. What he did at Temple was absolutely amazing. And then he moves to Miami, and he did well at Miami, but not as well as he could have because he's a transfer, and that has a lot to do with it. So, but they saw a lot in him. A lot of people thought he could have gone earlier with the amount of sacks that he had at Temple. Man, he could really get to the quarterback. Just watching highlights of this guy, he's tremendous. But he's still probably your third guy as far as edge rusher, because you're bringing back 2 prominent guys. One of the best players in the league, TJ Watt, and then Alex Highsmith. We still don't know about that jump from year 1 to year 2. I think he's going to make a tremendous jump.
Me too.
But there's still that question mark. You don't know yet. And then behind him, who is there? Because you lost Bud Dupree to the Titans, you lost Ola Adeniyi to the Titans. You have Cassius Marsh. Right. I think he's a quality backup. If one of those guys go down, do you want him starting? The answer is probably no. Roche is young, and watching a guy like that just jump in as a rookie, like you had to see at Highsmith at the end of last year, that's a huge ask. So do you go ahead and bring in an edge rusher? And there's some quality edge rushers if you could get them at the right price. Now, Jeff Hartman made a comment the other day on Ryan Kerrigan, who was number 2 on Michael Beck's list, and he was the top edge rusher. He's like, why don't you call him up and say, hey, do you want to play 1 year and possibly get a ring? It's up to you. Just let us know. I think he would be a great number 3 linebacker, because remember, these guys can't be going 100% of the time. How many times have you seen TJ on the sideline with the oxygen? I mean, because he's playing at a high level. I mean, you just can't. You need somebody to spell you. I mean, look at hockey. Look at the numbers in hockey. The ice time for some of these guys, their shifts are what, 4 minutes?
Right. Yeah.
If you're lucky, I mean, yeah. You know, they keep on having to go in and out. So, and in football, I mean, it's one of those things too that you need to have more depth, and they just don't have the depth at outside linebacker or edge rusher. Do you think that is one of the most important needs on the defense, or do you think it's somewhere else?
I think it's definitely an important need, at least in terms of depth. I think it's second because you need depth there, and you need a quality veteran. Roche is obviously totally unproven. I'm excited about him. He had a great college career. He was really productive, and he's intriguing, but he's obviously very unproven. Alex Highsmith is coming into his second year, and I'm excited about him, obviously, but he's still not quite there yet. And of course, TJ Watt is TJ Watt. So if you can bring in somebody, a veteran like that, like a Ryan Kerrigan or Justin Houston, as we talked about before, somebody who's proven. He's not. You don't want him to come in and start. It's gonna be like a James Harrison situation where, except without the drama, of course, somebody who understands that you're a backup. You're coming in to spell these guys during games, and maybe start if there's an injury. But that's about it. somebody like that, I would feel much better about their depth at outside linebacker if they can bring a guy like that in at the right price.
So the edge rushers that you could bring in, there's 4 on Michael Beck's list, and I have a favorite, and I think he is the one guy that I definitely want to bring in here, but I would probably take somebody, any of these 4 on this list. I would not have a problem bringing any of them in. So we talked about Ryan Kerrigan, and I think if you get any of these guys, it's a 1-year deal.
Right.
So we've got Kerrigan, we've got Melvin Ingram, who has had some injury issues with the Los Angeles Chargers, but Ingram knows how to get to the quarterback as well. You've got Olivier Vernon, who was having a great year last year before he went down with that injury. And he would be coming off of injury. He would be coming off of an injury. And then you have the guy that I would probably say is my favorite here, Justin Houston, who still at a later age is still getting to the quarterback. He had 8.5 sacks last year for the Indianapolis Colts. So of these 4 here, if you can go ahead and if you find the money to bring one of these guys in, who you're bringing in?
I would have to be. It would have to be either Kerrigan or Houston, because I'm familiar with those guys and I like what they do, and I like the careers they've had. So it would be one of those 2 guys. So I'll just say Kerrigan since you like Houston. So I'll just say, but either way, I'd be fine with either one of them because I think they're proven veterans and as long as they understand their role, that's the only thing. These athletes are a proud bunch, so they would have to. You have to make sure that they understood their role when they came in here. Again, it couldn't be like a James Harrison thing. So I'd be happy with either one of them, but Kerrigan, I'll just go with him.
I think at this point they do understand their role coming in, especially if you bring them in on a 1-year deal. I would probably go with Justin Houston here. I love Ryan Kerrigan. I'd love to see Olivier Vernon here too. The health is an issue with any of these guys at this point. I think maybe Ryan Kerrigan is probably the healthiest of the bunch, maybe Houston, but I would bring one of these guys in and, they might be. They might be waiting till after June 1st. You never know. Right. But guys are going off of the page right now. You're seeing guys getting signed and they're throwing decent money at guys, which might make you think that maybe they can't afford one of these guys. I did not expect any of the linemen, Villanueva, or I did not expect Fisher to command that much money, but they did. So some players are going for vet minimum and some are going for some money. So you'll just have to see. But with this many pass rushers out there, one of them could be available to the Steelers.
Yeah, and as you said, it was a surprise when Big Al and Fisher got the deals that they did. I would have expected them to get those kind of deals maybe 2 or 3 weeks into free agency, but this far out. But I guess teams were waiting to see how the draft unfolded, and now they're out shopping again. But yeah, if they can get one of those outside linebackers, and Vernon, he would be, the universe would give us back a. It would be, you got rid of Al. He went to a division rival. You get Vernon from a division rival. Maybe that balances things out a little bit.
So Steelers Freak disagrees with me. Throwing a ring for bait next year is a stretch. Yeah, I don't think so, because if you are there, they were a playoff team last year. I'm not saying that they're not a favorite to win a ring, but there's a possibility. I also said possibility that you could get a ring. It's not like you're going to a Jacksonville or a Detroit that is never competing. And you do have a championship winning coach. You have a lineup right now that is pretty good, that needs depth. You never know. I mean, there's a lot of teams that won titles that were not expected to, were not your 1 or 2 options to go ahead and win it all. So, I mean, it could be a little bit of a stretch, but no, I mean, it's a possibility. Nobody expected this team to go 11-0, and no one expected them to go 1-4 after that. So, I mean, it's still a proud organization that's done a lot of things, and a lot of years that they've competed, people were not expecting them to compete. Garrett Slingerland gives us $10. Thanks so much. And he's going back to the milkman, Isaiah Loudermilk. Why not move the milkman outside to be at least a developmental depth guy? He's huge. He's got a good bull rush, and he's got long enough arms to bat down balls at the line. It just depends where they're going to move him around. I mean, they're going to experiment with him. You still have John Mitchell there. And you have Carl Dunbar there as well. And you have some very good line coaches that are going to work with these guys. Look what they did with guys like Bugs and Carlos Davis. So, there's a possibility that they're going to go into the laboratory with a guy like him. So we'll wait and see on that. But you never know. That definitely could happen. So, Tony, we all agreed that the Steelers would probably be best served to bring in an edge rusher. Now, also on the linebacking in the linebacking core, you have maybe some depth needs at inside linebacker, but I don't think it's as grave as it is for your edge rusher, because now you still have Vince. Vince is back after being gone 3 weeks to a month. You have Mr. Spillane in there, Robert Spillane. I like to call him the legacy because his grandfather was a Heisman Trophy winner and played for the Steelers. Everybody else hates that nickname. And then you have, of course, Devin Bush coming off of an injury. But I think the depth is better there. But there's one guy that you thought he was coming back at that point, and they brought Vince back instead, and it was Avery Williamson. And he was number 10 on Michael Beck's list. That's probably a cheap sign at this point to bring him back in. What do you think the odds are of the Steelers bringing back a guy like Avery?
At this point, I think they're pretty low, only because it's such a crowded place now. And you have Ulysses Gilbert, which obviously you can't count on him. He's just been injury prone. But you also have Marcus Allen, who's basically a linebacker, an inside linebacker now. He's a safety, but he's essentially another inside linebacker. So there's so many bodies there. I would love it because to me, the more veteran you can have in that behind Spillane, who I presume is going to get their first crack as the starting linebacker alongside Bush, the more veterans you can have behind those guys, the better. But at this point, it seems the odds seem pretty long, in my opinion.
And Donald Nolan is saying that they're listing Killebrew as a linebacker now. And it's funny because you also have, he could be a safety. They could mix and match him. It's funny. A lot of people don't realize this, but one of the great safeties in Pittsburgh Steelers history was a college linebacker.
Right.
And that was Carnell Lake. So sometimes they mix and match those guys a whole heck of a lot. Jaron Sackenheim says you can't sleep on Buddy Johnson either. Yeah, and that's a guy that I did forget about. Bringing in a guy, I mean, you brought in Buddy Johnson in the draft. I just don't know what you get with Buddy Johnson yet either.
Right.
He is a lot of people were wondering about the Loudermilk pick, and I guess he's the most suspect of them all. I'm still not sure about Johnson because I just don't know enough about him, and I'm anxious to see what he can do as well. But I don't think that you really need to bring a guy in at inside linebacker at this point. I think you're right that I think Jaron Sackenheim's right that you really can't sleep on a guy like that. So they're probably pretty good at inside linebacker now too, and they've addressed that well in the draft. Jorge Gonzalez says on ESPN Get Up Morning Show, they're saying the Steelers are going to be one of the worst teams in 2021. Let them say that. I don't see it.
I just don't see real. I mean, I could see maybe them taking a step back and not winning 12 games again, but I don't get it where you're going from a team that was 11-0 and they won 12 games and won a division. Now they're going to be one of the worst teams. Why? Because they lost some parts, but it's not like it wasn't like a total gutting of the roster. So I just don't get it. But then again, they were down on them last year too. So I guess it's just the thing now.
Steelers are so much better when there's a chip on their shoulder. So I will definitely say that. Let's look at the safety position before we go to what I think is a glaring need at corner. Trey Boston's there, and Jeff Heath, who the Steelers have had ties to before. Jeff Heath was number 3 on Michael Beck's list, and he's of the Raiders. He's a safety, and he would be somebody that I could see them trying to bring in, especially now that Terrell Edmunds. Terrell Edmunds is possibly in his last year as a Steeler, as they did not pick up his 5th-year option. So those are 2 interesting guys there. Trey Boston is a guy that the Steelers have had ties to, that they were looking at possibly signing in past years. And Dave Schofield brings this up all the time, and I love it that he brings this up, because be careful what you ask for sometimes, because people were disappointed they did not sign Trey Boston. And if they sign Trey Boston, you never have number 39 Minkah Fitzpatrick in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. Right. It's because they would not make that trade if they bring in Trey Boston. And Trey Boston's kind of a journeyman now in the NFL. I could see them possibly bringing in a safety, but not as much after signing Arthur Millette over the weekend from the New York Jets. Now, I was all excited when I saw that they were bringing in a defensive back from the Jets. I was hoping it was Brian Poole, who was number 1 on Michael Beck's list. And I really think that the Steelers, if they're going to address anything, they need to look at edge, and they need to look at corner. Of the 2, what is more pressing for you, Tony?
Edge or corner? Definitely corner, without a doubt. I think there's room there for a guy to come in and start in 2021. I mean, because Justin Lane is obviously very unproven. James Pierre, who a lot of people are excited about, he's unproven. And maybe it's Cam Sutton who plays on the outside, and he's certainly capable, but then who plays the slot? You know what I mean? So I think definitely corner is the more pressing need.
So here's who I think they should bring in. Another guy on the list, I would love to bring in Poole. Another guy on the list is Nickel Roby-Coleman. But number 9 on Michael Beck's list is a guy I would reach out to with a bouquet of flowers. And I'd say Steven Nelson. Look, I know we broke up. I know we broke up for a couple of months. I know there's hard feelings. I know I hurt you like no team has ever hurt you before. I know that on your Facebook notification, your status relationship, it says it's complicated. I know that, Steven Nelson. But here's the thing. You know this system. We know you. Let's come back for a 1-year deal and see what we can do to bridge the gap from there. Let's make up for a month. Let's give it another shot. Right. If it doesn't work out, you go your own way. You have a great year. You go your own way. There's probably a boatload of cash coming towards you, but probably your Steven Nelson's best chance to have a great showing is to be back with the Steelers for 1 more year. Now, that is easier said than done, because there are hurt feelings. There are egos. And trust me, I would have the ego too. I would be upset. But like I said, Wilfredo says makeups are the best, but Jerry Cherry Band, love me some Jerry Cherry. We have a better chance of getting Willie Nelson.
That would certainly be he would be definitely a publicity stunt for sure.
I see you, Willie Nelson. I raise you a Charles Nelson O'Reilly. We can bring him in. So that's really funny. I think bringing back Nelson, like I said, it would be very hard to do right now. But we saw it in professional wrestling a lot. How many guys said they would never work for Vince McMahon again? And next thing you know, Bret Hart's brother died and they screwed him over, and he still came back to the World Wrestling Entertainment. And I know this is not WWE, but there are situations where sometimes you do make up and you realize, hey, it might be a better business decision to maybe go back a year and just say, all right, I was ticked off, but I'll come back. I think if he did come back, it would be for 1 year, but it gives you a chance to showcase your talent and see what you can do. I just don't think he would. And Ryan O'Toole asked, who exactly was Charles Nelson Riley? What was he famous for? Hollywood Squares. He was on Match Game a lot too, but he was also on the Love Boat quite a bit. So there you go.
He was a game show star.
Yeah, but he would show up on the Love Boat every once in a while too, and just with wacky shenanigans. IMDb, Charles Nelson Riley. Awesome stuff. Wants to bring in Craig T. Nelson. Well,
I still think Steven Nelson's better than all them as a cornerback in the NFL. And that's the thing. I don't get it. I don't know enough about it apparently, but everybody, there are a lot of people that are pretty darn certain that he regressed last year, but I didn't really notice it. And I think even if he did regress a little bit, he's still a starting caliber corner in the NFL. He's still a good number 2 corner. And I think, you could do a lot worse than Steven Nelson as your starting corner in 2021, even if it's just for 1 more year, provided it's at a deal that both parties can come to an agreement with. I could care less about how they broke up. He didn't really burn bridges like Antonio Brown did. There was really nothing like that. It was a business decision. There were some hurt feelings, but that's between them. He didn't really have anything bad to say about the Steeler fans, or he didn't say anything bad about his teammates. He didn't really say anything bad about the organization. They just had a parting of the ways due to a business disagreement. It happens all the time. I would bring him back for sure. I think you get him back in there. It does so much for that defense in 2021 as far as stability is concerned.
So to answer Jorge's question, but was the Steelers that let him go? Yes, the Steelers did let him go. Steelers also let go Vince Williams.
Right.
But they it was one of those things that he asked you if you could take less. They asked him if he could take less to come back. Would they ask Nelson to come in maybe maybe they negotiate the price, make it worth them to go ahead and hit the market next year and just say, okay, yeah, we had a fight, but could we possibly fix this and work together to because really, I mean, if he came back in, I think he would have a better chance of realizing a huge payoff, a huge payday in 2022. But, that's, like I said, easier said than done. Felix Escalano says the only free agent better than Nelson to him is Bryan Poole. I would love to see them look to Bryan Poole as well. I think the bottom line to the whole thing, Tony, is that they need to bring somebody else in at corner, because if somebody gets hurt, what do you have?
Right. Yeah. Unless James Pierre is that the new Mike Hilton, not as a slot corner, but as an undrafted free agent that's just so darn good, and he comes out of nowhere, and he's your starting outside corner in 2021. Yeah, I think there's definitely room for them to bring somebody in.
So Thaddeus is saying, I guess Tony didn't see the Nelson interview. Oh yeah, Nelson's pissed.
Yeah,
and he's hurt, and
right,
and he definitely feels that his services are worth more than what the Steelers did. But it is still a business decision. But you could always go back on a business decision when you see that you might have room here and there, and that it's definitely a glaring need. So that's something they could look at. But I want to thank everybody here, Tony. It was a fun show. We did talk about draft picks a little bit and how they fill in, but I wanted to talk more about veterans, and it was good to get off of the players, the 9 players that we brought in. I do remember 2 years ago, one of the studs that we were so excited about bringing in was a guy named Sutton Smith, and how he was going to change the team. And news, he signed with an NFL team today. So Sutton Smith is back in the league as well. So just thought I would bring that up. But it's fun to speculate what's going to happen with the Steelers as we look towards September. We've got mini camps coming up. We've got the schedule released this week. And there was an article this week on BTSC that, is the Steelers roster, is all the starters on the Steelers roster, are they in a black and gold uniform right now? And I'm kind of thinking that there's a possibility not, that there's going to be somebody new. But Donald asked, are there going to be a show on undrafted free agents coming up? We've been talking about undrafted free agents here and there. I love Shakur Brown, Mark Gilbert. I love Wade as well. So there's guys to talk about. There's the linebackers. There's a bunch of guys named Isaiah coming in. So I guess that was the it name 22 years ago. So we will talk about
exactly.
We will be talking about a lot, as we have these podcasts every single day on BTSC. Twice a day we have podcasts that are dropping, whether they are on our audio only side or if they are here on YouTube and Facebook. So thanks so much for spending your time with us. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. This is Tony Defeo. And just when you think you've got all the answers,
we keep changing the questions.